Welcome to the Agilists Aspire and Achieve in Your Agile Career video podcast series. This series is all about helping you grow, thrive, and making an impact in your career in the community with an Agile mindset. Whether you're just starting out or you're an experienced practitioner, we're here to bring you inspiring stories, actionable advice, and meaningful conversations that will help you navigate and excel in your Agile career, meeting some amazing mentors along the way. Get ready to aspire, achieve, and thrive in the next step of your journey. Tricia, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm excited to be here. This is awesome. Well, at least I'm excited to be with you virtually. I'd much rather that I was in Australia with you, but I am excited for this.
Yes, it's an interesting time in Australia at the moment. Weather-wise, we've just had lots of rain. So it's winter. We've had lots of rain on the eastern side of Australia over the last week. And it's humid now, like humid and hot and sticky.
I wouldn't care. I was supposed to have a trip to Australia in 2020. I cried every day that trip. I was like the days I was supposed to be there, and then it didn't happen because of 2020. It could be raining. It could be like thunder. I might have some trauma, people. I might have some trauma related to this, okay? I didn't even take it off my calendar. I still know what days I was supposed to be there in 2020.
What were you coming over for? Just a holiday?
I was going to be we had the Agile Alliance board meeting that we were going to do, and then I was going to attend the conference there.
Which
Agile
conference?
The Agile Australia.
Yeah. That happened this week. I was there on Monday, Tuesday this week.
Oh, okay.
Down in Melbourne. Yeah. Oh, well, there's always another. That conference runs every year.
Someday it will happen again. The universe will align for me again.
So yes, as I said, thank you for joining us today. Before we get too much further, I might get you to introduce yourself, please, to our audience.
Sure. My name is Tricia Broderick, and I run Ignite Insight and Innovation, and I refer to myself as a leadership advisor. Basically, I try to help people discover what's possible, right? And so whether that's in the workplace, in terms of organizations or teamwork, or just your own development and growth, whether it's from speaking or training or whatever that might be, is really just kind of trying to pay forward and help people in the ways that people help me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Awesome.
And I always I'm not very good at this, the whole bio thing, but I'm also co-wrote Lead Without Blame with Diana Larson. I have it massively up on a wall, and I still have not incorporated it fully into that quick one sentence bio. It's just still
I pulled it out of my bookcase just in case I needed it today. But when did that book come out, by the way?
And that's the benefit of having this up on the wall, is I can immediately go September of 2022. So it's been out for a little bit, and it's been really well received and everything, but it's still a surreal, amazing experience that I still feel very lucky to have been a part of.
Yeah, and it's a great book. Today's topic is speaking at Agile conferences. Maybe we should do another one another day about writing a book. But today, it's speaking at Agile conferences. How did you walk us through your first ever time that you spoke at an Agile conference? How did that happen for you?
How did that happen for me? So I went to Agile Alliance conferences starting in 2007. It was my first Agile conference I went to in 2007. And I was overwhelmed. I'll be fair. I was like, oh my gosh, this is can I really do that? Oh my, that's insanity. But I started talking with a number of different people. And one of the people that I was talking with is the late David Hussman. And he was like, why are you not speaking? And I was like, I'm a practitioner. I'm a director of development. I don't do this. And he's like, you need to be speaking. And I was like, ha ha ha. And then I just went on my way. And fast forward to I looked this up just because I knew that this was going to be part of the conversation. I think the first time I spoke at an Agile conference was 2010.
Okay.
And it was a TechWell at the time, SQE's Software Quality Engineers, Agile DevOps conference. And it was the first time I spoke, and like at an official Agile conference, not in an internal or smaller meetup or things. And I spoke, and it was in Vegas. So it just felt like all the stars were aligning for me in that. Mm-hmm. And I delivered my first, 45-minute session, and was pretty hooked right off the bat, and then have not stopped since.
Awesome. So your first conference was 2007. How did you find yourself in Agile leading up to that?
So I got lucky. I actually had a colleague that exposed me had us read Extreme Programming in 1999. And we were teaching a financial institution, how to write a J2E web app. And so we used XP. We did short releases. We did pairing. It was amazing. And I wish I could be like, oh, and so immediately when the manifesto came out, I was like, no, I had no idea, nothing. I knew nothing about it. I just knew about XP, right? And I had read Kent Beck's book and things like that. And then I went right back to Waterfall, was doing different things. And fast forward to 2005, I was on a huge government project. And again, a colleague's like, we're going to use Scrum. And I was like, what's Scrum? And so we started getting exposed to Scrum. And at that point, we were bringing in a few people. I was going, well, what's Agile? Like, I don't understand what. So I got exposed to the frameworks first before I ever knew anything about the manifesto. And at first I like to refer to myself as the queen of faking Scrum in 2005. Like, I was the queen of it, but but there was still something there. There was still something that I was like, okay, I want to explore what this could be and what this means. And not right away, obviously, it took a little while. And then, so in 2007, I happened upon Agile Alliance conference and that information. And I attended that conference and went.
Wow.
And have gone every year minus 2020 since.
Wow. So is the Agile Alliance conference, is that your local conference?
It's not local because, it is usually North American based. So in that sense, it's a little bit more local, but it's the one that I went to, and as a practitioner, when I was an executive, I was only going to one conference a year. And so it became kind of what I refer to as almost like my home base conference. And the constant one. It wasn't till I started speaking in 2010 and later that I started attending many other conferences along those. And really, even then, I was only attending if I was speaking. It was rare in 2010. It wasn't till about 2013 when I really started kind of going to a number of different conferences and spaces and places with things.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Which all of those dates now make me feel very old.
No.
So does my 20-year-old son, but that's a different story.
No, it's just experience. Lots of it. Yeah, it's fun. The reason I asked that question was because Agile Australia feels like that home base kind of conference for me. I don't go every year. I probably go every second year. I think a lot of the time I go because it's just to catch up with people, to see people that you haven't seen. And I went for the first time again in 2022 after COVID, and it was the first one that was back in person and whatever. It was just kind of like a family reunion. It was so good. But yes, it's interesting. It's interesting how you keep going back to those ones.
And there is a dynamic of that connection that energizes me, right? And they are. My husband actually said it when 2020 hit. In a lot of ways, he's like, I knew you were close with people when you go to these conferences and things like that, but I didn't understand they were like, they're your friends, right? And because on some level we understand each other at a instantly because of the shared values, because of the shared principles. We don't feel so alone the minute we're challenging and we're going after this huge movement of what we're trying to accomplish, and there's support there and there's energy there, and it's powerful. And then add in getting to meet new people and things like that. I mean, it's just, this extrovert is in heaven at conferences.
Yeah. I think it brings out my extrovertedness, if that's a word, because that's not me naturally, but it is the place that I know what you mean when you say you get your energy from it, and you don't have to try because everyone just gets it, and everyone's at different stages of their career, I guess, and experience.
Some are helping you, you're helping others.
Yeah.
It's just it's a support.
Yeah. So the first conference that you spoke at,
Yes.
I've got many questions, but first one is how did you get into it in the first place?
So in that specific one, at the time it was called SQE, Software Quality Engineering, is now TechWell. And at that time, there was one person that kind of made most of the programming decisions. And he actually would call each submission, or called a handful of the submissions that it got down to. And he'd like basically, I remember it so clearly. I'm sitting in my office at one point and I get this unknown phone number the first time he called, and I answer it and he's like, pitch it. And I was like, pitch what? Like it was so nerve-wracking, and I did not get it. That was my attempt in 2008 and 9, and I had to try multiple times. And then finally in 2009, or towards the end of 2009, he's like, pitch this talk, sell me on it. And he did it in a lovely way, but in my head, that's like, I was like, go.
Yeah.
And I did, and he was like, I want to hear more about this, and he put me on the program, and so I went. Why I chose that one, or in that scenario, no idea. It probably because of the Vegas thing, honestly, but like it worked out for me in that I could have that engagement, because if I think back to that submission at that time that I was submitting, they weren't very good. I didn't know how to do that at that time by any means. So me being able to have that conversation back and forth really helped me in landing that first one.
Yeah. And that would have been nerve-wracking, getting that pitch it to me, because it's the timing.
No other conference has ever done that. Like that was and I don't know if that actually happens ever again after that, but that was my journey with it.
Yeah. I'm just like, because when you submit to a conference, or at least in Australia, when you submit to a conference, when I have submitted to conferences, my ideas have been pretty fresh. I've seen the themes or whatever that they're, the streams of a conference, and I'm like, oh, my talk, I have a rough idea, but I kind of make my idea fit into the stream or the whatever. And what it ends up being, what the talk ends up being versus what I put in that submission are often two different things. Have you found that as well for yourself? Like it evolves from when you submit to when you deliver?
100%, especially the more that they make you write out in the submission, it does evolve. And in some cases, you have to submit 6-9 months in advance of the talk. And I just will have given it a few times, or I will have done certain things, or I have more information. I always think the core message is in alignment to what they submit. I really am not a fan of when somebody submits and then they come in and they do something totally different, because at the end of the day, the description, it should align with the description. Yeah. It should align with the title, because the program team is picking it based on that.
Yeah.
But maybe how I run it, or a specific key points or a learning objective might make some adjustments, but the key message is always the same.
Yeah. Have you got any tips for putting those submissions together in the first place?
Yeah. So, and it varies. This is the part that is really hard, is because each conference has a different way of selecting. So in some cases, you have some conferences that have a person or just a handful of people do it. Some conferences, you have blind submissions. Some conferences, you have a huge committee of people selecting it. And depending on how many they're doing and things like this. So in the core submission itself, there's a couple things that I'm looking for. I'm looking when I'm doing it or when I'm reviewing for them, because I've run a number of conferences as well, is does the description make me go, I want to hear what this person's going to say? Like I'm intrigued, right? Too much, and I already feel like I've got it. I don't want to go to your session. Too little. And I'm like, is this going to be something I've already know about? Right. And so there is a little bit of, I highly recommend for people, go look at existing conference programs, look at existing descriptions and see what styles you like. Everybody's got slightly different styles. Mine tend to have a problem statement at the beginning because I want to narrow my audience. So like, are you struggling to empower your teams, right? Like I want, and that problem statement helps people know who I'm looking for to attend the session. And so I tend to start with some kind of audience targeting problem statement. And then I tend to give some teasers of what's going to be in the content. And then some of the learning objectives in terms of what you'll gain, what you'll get. And then because it's me, I'm trying to add in a little humor, a little snark, a little little personality into mine with it. But can I tell from the description who your audience is and what I'm going to gain from it is a huge part. Then after that, like, so every submission is going to want your title and a description, like every single one, and a bio and a picture. After that, some places want you to really list out the entire outline of your session, down to timings, down to key points. If you have slides or extra materials, the better. Others want just that description and learning objectives. And so really, if they have examples that they've put up, take the time to look at their examples. Take the time. There was a time, and I don't know if this is still true with the new submission system for Agile Alliance, but you could go in and look at anybody's submissions and currently for this round. And so if I would pull up submissions and I'd say, let's say I was going to do a topic about facilitation. Well, how many sessions are already being submitted on facilitation? And do some of that little bit of research and look, because that's your competition when it comes down to it, of when that program team is selecting. And if they get 1,000 submissions and have 100 slots, you need to know who you're competing with in that regard, because that's what they're choosing from. And they can't have 100 facilitation submissions or sessions.
Yeah, that's a good tip. That is a good tip, to know what you're up against. A lot of the conferences that I've submitted to, you can't see who else has submitted.
A lot are a black box. It is one of the reasons why I like the Agile Alliance ones in particular, because not only do they tend to not be a black box, but they actually have a feedback mechanism built into it, which not all conferences do. On the flip side, it can sometimes be nice to be a black box, because it's just like, okay, because I'll overthink it a little bit, and there's the balance. But my tip also for people is, if they don't have an example, and if it is a black box, then find a former speaker. See if you have a connection of somebody that has spoken at a conference, see if they'll review your submission. I've done it for a number of people. A lot of speakers will do it just to say, here's what's standing out to me. It's not a guarantee. It doesn't, like, it's not a check box kind of review, but it will help you develop where you are with it. The other thing that helps people develop their submissions is actually having to review other people's submissions. So if you can volunteer to be a reviewer, oh my goodness. The first time I did reviewing of submissions, I was like, oh, that's why I'm not getting picked. It was like, oh, that's what, like, once you start reading 50 of them, you're like, oh, this is what makes it easy to pick something. This is what makes it a little bit harder. Yeah. And it just starts to kind of make a little bit more sense in your brain, versus when you're just going, but my idea is good. I want to speak on this. Trust me. Right.
Yeah.
And you only have that lens to look at it from.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good tip too. Okay. So you've been selected, and you now have to get ready to present on whatever date. Talk me through your cycle. How do you get ready?
Do you want my early cycle or my current cycle?
I think start with early, and then we'll touch on the things that have shifted for you now that you're a lot more experienced, and how you got to that point. But yeah, your early days.
So that first one that I did, I legitimately practiced my session for my company. Like I asked volunteers in the company, I was like, who wants to sit and listen to me speak?
Yeah.
And even our CEO sat in and was like to help me and give me feedback. So I did a lot of practice sessions for timing and for delivery and things. And in some ways that was kind of really helpful for me because it was way harder giving it to them than it was to give it to strangers. For me, some people it's the opposite, right? But for me, my CEO was way harder on me than like in a good, great, amazing way, right? But like my team was, right there to where I was like, if I bomb this, they're going to make fun of me. Well, not really, but in general, the pressure felt more there, right?
Yeah.
But I practiced. I practiced timing. I practiced delivery. I saw what made sense, what didn't, because it was also a little bit of a workshop. So I didn't know if my instructions were going to be clear or not clear. And especially with the timing, what that was going to be. So I prepped all the materials and then I ran I want to say like 2 or 3 times inside my own company or with volunteers before I actually did it at the conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very similar. I think for me, practice is definitely, and I one talk that I did 2019, which was at the Global Scrum Gathering in Vienna, and European audience, right? So I tested it at the local Women in Agile meetup, very, very, very early stages. So my slides were still kind of black and white and not the final at all what they were going to be. Got lots of feedback there. I did run it for my company as well. And got lots of feedback there. A friend of mine organized a European audience for me, and I delivered it to them, and I got a lot of good feedback language-wise, things that didn't really translate, and I needed to slow down when my speaking. And so there were lots of good pointers for delivering to a European audience where English isn't necessarily their first language or the one that they speak every day. And then finally, I did it delivered in front of my husband and mentor, and ruthless, pages and pages and pages of feedback. And my husband's not in the Agile world, or his company that he works for kind of follows it, but he was coming at it from he used to do debating and speaking and stuff at school. So he was coming at it from that perspective, which was another good lens to get. But yes, it changed so much from my first draft. And it was kind of, when I think back, it was kind of a little bit embarrassing, actually. That first one that I thought was all good, ready to go. She's awesome. I just need to tidy up the slides. And then you just, no. Okay, cool. It really needs to be completely different. But yeah, what
works in your head versus delivery are not always the same thing.
Yes. Practice and feedback. So now that you're a seasoned speaker, what's your prep to delivery day?
So my prep is, I'm almost cautious to not share this because it sounds, it can sound maybe not right, but I don't practice anymore. In terms, I'm not worried about timing. I know how to adjust in the moment if I need to with timing. I know how to handle improv. In fact, I'm more comfortable in unscripted world than I am in a scripted world now. And I actually find the more that I practice, it messes me up a little bit in that regard. So now my prep is more in crafting the story. And thinking about what stories, how I'm taking the emotional arc in my speaking and what I'm doing with the overall flow emotionally and in a captivating way. And I'm spending way more time paying attention to a visual of how it's going to emphasize this point or this story and where do I want that timing. And so it is still practice, but it's more in the art of storytelling and delivery than in content. Or just the basics of those things. So I'm really, that's the part, like I'm working on a new version of a keynote that I'm doing right now. And And I'm still like playing with, okay, does it make sense to push that topic here or there? So there's a lot more flow kinds of focus for me than there was early on. Like early on, it was just deliver and timing. Now I've had all sorts of things happen while delivering to where I'm comfortable that I can handle anything that comes up in a timing capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good at judging how long things are going to take without practicing the timing. But now it's very like I want to take you on a journey with me during it. And can I do that? And how am I going to do that best? And so there's a lot more emphasis and prep in that area for me now.
Okay. How many talks do you think you have? Do you have a tally? Do you know how many talks you've delivered?
So no, I can say that there was a year where I was like, okay, I've got to start maxing myself out at 10 a year.
Wow.
But I actually don't even think I achieved that any of those years. Like in October, I'm doing 5 alone, and that doesn't even count everything else that I've done this year. So I'm pretty sure I'm over 10 this year. And that is also not covering meetups or podcasts like this. I'm not even counting in those numbers. So I probably, as a true conference, virtual or in person, I probably average 10 to 14 a year is what I'm going to guess. And and that's at the start of my career is probably, I was only doing 1, maybe 2 at best. So it's a number up there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a number up there. I don't know if I really want to tally that number.
But it's good guidance for our listeners or for our audience, especially your answer before around how you prep for your talks these days. You've done.
So I mean, if you figure 2010, 14 years, 10 on average, 10.
Yeah, you've done over 100 talks to get to where you are from a prep perspective. So I think, that just gives people a little bit of guidance that. Yeah, you definitely learn the skills and what works for you and what doesn't work for you over the years. So you've done a lot of talks. An have you continued doing a lot of talks?
That's a wonderful question. I have an honest answer and a really honest answer. So my honest answer is 2-part in the sense that I do find that I do talks that help me rant or think through topics. And so it helps me actually process information of I'm working on a talk about resilience and like, what does that mean? And and so a lot of times when I'm crafting talks, because I'm working on so much on that flow, it's actually helping me think about what I want to teach or what I want to say or what I want to write about with it. So there's a selfish benefit in that regard for me. 2, there's a benefit, and the second part of the helpful answer is that I get to pay it forward, right? I think about how much I have learned at Agile conferences over the years, how valuable it has been for me, how many times I'll refer to Christopher Avery's responsibility process or Snowden's Cynefin to just so much that sometimes I'm like, does anything I think individual or my thoughts, like it feels like a melting pot, but this is my opportunity to kind of pay that forward, to give back. And I'm proud to do that. I'm proud to be part of the community and be able to do that and have people maybe then be inspired to do it further as they continue on. So that's my honest, that is my honest answer. My very honest answer, I like it. I like being on the stage. I like being a ham. Because I'm taking people on a journey when I speak, and often when my topics, I try and be a little vulnerable in my topics and stuff. I get to be charismatic. I get to be, somebody called me magnetic the other day, and it like made my heart I like being on a stage. I get a lot of energy from it. I enjoy the feeding off the energy of the crowd. I enjoy helping people have those insights. I enjoy watching the aha moments right there. Like there are times that people will say, well, being a quote unquote a celebrity is addictive or whatever. I'm not a celebrity by any means of the fashion, but I can understand the allure. Like I would be somebody that would be like, oh, I do like being on a stage. Like I have no like qualms or fears about public speaking and stuff. And so I just find I gain energy from it. I enjoy it. I have fun and with the true honest answer. And then this one, like, I don't think I could walk away from it even if I tried. Maybe scale back sometimes.
Yeah, sure. That's worked so well for you in the past.
But I just enjoy it on every element of it.
Yeah. Beautiful. So talk us through your first keynote that you ever did. How did you, were you asked to be a keynoter, or had you submitted something? They went, oh, this is keynote material. What was that like?
So the interesting part of that, and I didn't realize this until I was thinking about this topic and I was like, okay, she's probably going to ask me some historical things. And I went and I looked and I realized that the conference that gave me my first speaking is the conference that gave me my first keynote.
Wow.
And I didn't actually realize this until like 5 minutes before we got on this call.
Wow.
And I didn't actually even realize it.
Wow.
But I had been at that point delivering for a couple of years. I was highly rated. They were now coming back to me because I had high ratings on my sessions. I was responsible. I delivered, right? I was professional and all that stuff. So because of that result, and people actually saying she should be on the main stage, like make her a keynote. Apparently they listened and that I got my first keynote. And I want to say it was either in 2012 or 2013. It was kind of quick from when I started speaking, honestly. I normally would not tell anybody. Like I'll have a couple people like, well, I'm speaking, I should be a keynote. And I was like, you started speaking 6 months ago. Like, no. And so for me, honestly, it was pretty quick of a timeline of even what I kind of highlight to other people in my journey of it. But it was because it was actually the same. And now that makes sense. Like I actually don't even reference it very often because it felt so quick in my journey.
Yeah.
But it was because it was with the same organization.
Yeah, right. And you were asked to deliver your first keynote. Did you go, oh crap? Or were you like, yes, bring it on?
So my initial was bring it on. And then they were like, so we need you to be motivational. And then all of a sudden, all of my natural motivational skills, like the whole reason I tend to do a good job is because I'm motivating. The minute you told me to be motivating, blank screen. Like I was like just absolute. I remember sitting in my bed trying to type on my laptop going, I got nothing. I should have never said yes. Why did I say yes? Like I was just absolute panic. And I had to step back. And what I ended up doing to overcome this was a little bit of, I made it a normal session that I would just deliver. And then I stripped out the activities basically. And then I was able to, but it was such panic. The minute he was like, well, and of course we need you to, keep up the motivational and make sure it's really motivated. I was like, I can't be motivated. Like I literally just went total paranoia, like just froze, absolutely froze. And so I had to pretend it was not a keynote and then strip it back. It probably wasn't very good, honestly. And I would never go back and look at that video. I remember the feedback was really positive. I remember everybody was happy with it, but I would probably be like, no, it was, now that I know what I know about keynoting and things like that. Yeah. And knowing that all I did really was strip out the activities. No, it was probably the least that I could do. But that was literally how I had to overcome that first one. And then it was a while before I got a second one. And then it started recurring after that.
Do you have any advice for speakers that have been speaking for a while, but have not quite sure how to crack into that keynote world?
So this is actually interesting because I am actually starting to consider that a little bit myself right now. I have had the privilege, gratefulness, and lucky that my reputation and my the doors that did open for me have rippled into other opportunities that made it something that I can refer back to or reference or have the recommendations and things like that. And but I go outside of the Agile community and that's all gone, right? And so every time I've actually submitted to alternative conferences and stuff, I have no known kind of dynamic. They don't. And so one of the things I'm learning and practicing, and I don't know if I'm trying it myself, is actually doing a little bit more pitching of myself. I didn't know that this was a thing. I didn't know that you could pitch yourself to event managers or to organizers and say, I mean, the worst thing they're going to say is, no, we're not interested, right? Or not respond at all. But it never occurred to me to pitch myself. I would just be like, no, you just get invited. Like, but that is a hard part is if you then don't have somebody helping to support you or opening that door or referring. Like now I have some of those organizers contacting me, and I just had this happen where they're like, I need a female who can talk about AI. Do you know anybody? And then I'll give them a list of some names, right? And so there are, making networking, making connections with people, not because you have to know a specific person always, but there is an element of people, referrals and recommendations do help. And I'm sure that somebody put my name in at times when my name's come up, somebody has mentioned it. And so, but I'm personally, when I'm like, I have no name recognition, I have nobody giving, I don't know anybody, I'm experimenting with pitching myself a little bit more. So I'm right now crafting a little pitch video and pitch template and stuff to be able to communicate with stuff. I have no idea if it will work. Ask me again in a year and I'll let you know. But that is something I'm trying when I'm going in blind now. And that's something that a lot of people are going to experience. But even if you haven't keynoted, there are opportunities at smaller company or regional companies. Companies are always looking for people, especially if you're testing something out. With different things, meetups like Agile Denver. I'm the board president for Agile Denver. We're always, looking at different meetups. And so use the data, like the feedback, the results, get some videos of different things that will help you when you don't necessarily have the connections as much, or the doors are just not opening as, and it is hard. At the end of the day, keynotes mean there's less. And that's a hard dynamic with it.
Have you cracked the international keynote speaking market?
I have had one. And I got it this year. This my first year. So I spoke in Cape Town, South Africa, for the local not the local regional Scrum gathering, and it was amazing. But that was my first one, and so hopefully not the last one. It was amazing. I was very like that community is just just wonderful community, wonderful area. It was such an like February was a highlight for me with that. So that was my first. I mean, I'd spoken internationally, but not keynoted. That was the first keynote that I've had international. Hopefully it leads to more. And I'll be pitching and we'll see if that results in some things. But in general, no, I'm not as known, right? Or you're not top of mind often with some of those things, and because you're not speaking at the conferences as often as I'm speaking here, or have built up. Like I had to speak at certain conferences several times before they're like, oh, you know what, Tricia, we should try.
I remember you. Yeah.
And so when you're only going over to an area once every 5 years, it's harder to be at the top of mind. Some people will say writing a book will help. And I do think it does help a little bit. But it's not a guarantee like, oh, she has a book, so now she gets all the keynotes. Like that's not how that plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you doing for your own professional growth, whether it's speaking or the topics you're talking about, and how do you keep your skills building?
So, and I'll keep it specific to speaking just because this is the topic that we have, is I've actually done several things. One, I teach a class on impactful training and speaking. So teaching it, I get to you learn a lot when you're trying to teach somebody else. And so there's a lot of benefit for me with that and helping people embrace their speaking. I give feedback I'll do mentoring sessions and doing things like that. So by helping others, it helps me as well. But that's that's an ongoing one for me. Recently, I attempted to join Toastmasters. Like I checked out a couple Toastmasters. Mm-hmm. I am making my teenagers now go to Toastmasters. Like I think very early on, or if I ever had like a true public fear of speaking, it would have been just an amazing environment and like situation for me. Now the way that it's structured, it wasn't as like in alignment with what I needed. And somebody at Toastmasters said, well, you should be joining the National Speaker Association. And I was like, what is that? So as of 8 days ago, I joined the National Speaker Association and attended their like yearly conference and took just numerous notes out of, ooh, and like that technique, ooh, that was good. That, ooh, I saw that. And I was like, and looking to kind of, again, level up that flow, level up the story, level up how I'm incorporating things that are both on a personal side, but on a professional side. And what does that look like? And I've always done it, but can I do it better? And so I'm digging into that and working on that and leveling things up and, or at least trying to level things up, whether it's the pitch or whether it's the skills of those things. But I have joined the National Speaker Association as of just a little bit ago and already attended their conference and joined the local chapter. And I'm going to start attending that to see what can I learn of how to break into other markets or doing different things with those things, and what can I do to improve my skill? Because my current keynote, I will have to make a new one at some point because my current one incorporates something I am not going to be able to keep doing in it has some handstands in there. And as I approach 50, like this is not something I'm going to be able to keep up as a keynote. So we're going to have to get another twist at some point. But it's been a cool journey with that. So that is like active, like in the moment. I have a whole laundry list of action items that came out of that conference of things I'm going to try and do.
Awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience or listeners?
So, final words. That feels like pressure right there. I think what's popping in my head first, I guess, is a combination thing. A lot of people get nervous speaking because, well, why should I speak? Because so-and-so could say it better or so-and-so knows this better. And I remember talking with Esther Derby about this, even when before I decided to write a book by chance with Diana Larson later. And and Esther graciously said, Tricia, they might need to hear it from your voice. You might say the exact same thing I said, but they needed to hear you say it, not me. And somebody else needed me to say it, not you. We're about amplifying each other, not anything else. And that really stuck with me because a lot of cases, I think we hold ourselves back as speakers, especially women, because we're like, well, am I the true expert or am I the true or somebody else? No, somebody needs to hear your story, your delivery, your application, your wisdom, your path, because it might register with them in a way that mine will never. And that's the voices we need to keep hearing. It's why my stuff always keeps evolving. Some people will say, well, you get one thing and you stick to it. It's like, I can't do that because I'm not staying the same. Right. And the more voices we hear, the more powerful it is. And so I think I'd highlight that as my key, maybe encouragement of just share. You don't have to be the expert. It's your story. And you're the expert of your story.
Exactly. You're the expert of your story. That's an awesome podcast title. Thank you for your time today, Tricia. It's been amazing to meet you and also to speak to you, especially about this topic. So thank you for your time.
Likewise, anytime.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Agilists Aspire and Achieve in Your Agile Career. We hope you found inspiration and practical tips to elevate your Agile journey. Remember, growth doesn't happen alone. So consider exploring the Women in Agile Mentorship Program and/or follow the Agile Careers MPO on LinkedIn to see more content geared towards advancing your own career. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what topics you'd love to see next. Keep inspiring, keep achieving, and continue thriving in your career.